Well, we're dealing with the loss of our good friend Tim Wilson this morning, and another good friend is on the line with us, James Gregory. This morning, James. Good morning, buddy.
Good morning, guys. How you all doing?
Hey, man.
Hanging in there, man.
We got heavy hearts, James. Doggone it.
Well, I'll tell you, John Boy, Billy, the world seems like a much smaller place today than it did 2 days ago.
Sure does, man. I tell you, James, and we thought about you, because Tim was right up there. We have several of you guys that we've been friends with for over 20 years, and when something like this happens, you just don't expect it. I mean, we were talking about Tim was eating better, taking better care of himself, and just did not see this coming, buddy.
It's just such a shock, and then when something like that happens, you bring back memories as if it happened yesterday. Right. I met Tim Wilson for the first time ever in the fall of 1983. It was over 30 years ago. Let me tell you a little story about the first time I met him. There was a comedy club in Atlanta, Georgia. The first club that opened in 1982 called the Punchline.
Right.
And a second show opened up downtown. It was called the Comedy Spot. And they had a big contest going on. And I was just there, not part of the show, but just kind of watching all my friends compete in this contest. And toward the end of the show, this big, tall, good-looking guy, bunch of hair, by the way, a lot of hair.
Still had a bunch of hair.
Yeah.
He was almost late because he, like all of us, we had regular day jobs back then. We had not become pro comedian.
Right.
So he had to get off work in Columbus, that's where he lived, and drive to Atlanta. He almost didn't make it, but he was sweaty. He goes on stage. He's the last one that goes on stage, and he won the contest.
Wow.
He won the contest. The prize he got was to have a free trip to New York City and to perform at Catch a Rising Star, a big famous place in New York. So that was the first time I ever met him. And it just seemed like it was yesterday.
And, James, we talk about it, man, like you do and Tim did as well. He embraced his southernicity.
Oh, no doubt about it.
He was proud of it. He never changed for the Yankee audiences or wherever he was playing, man. He was just real.
Well, there's no reason for any of us to change.
Right.
That's one thing that Tim and I had the same attitude about, because Tim spent a lot of time in his career. Whether it be Los Angeles or San Francisco or New England, he spent some time in New York for 2 or 3 years, and I performed in New York. But any time that we would go to those places, we were convinced, and we meant it too, we really meant it, that those people had the accent.
That's right.
It never occurred to Tim Wilson that he had an accent.
And the thing about Tim was an English major in college as well.
So. Went to Presbyterian College in Clinton, South Carolina.
I tell you, a lot of people, as far as the fans and the people who have watched him over the years, and he's been on the road about as long as I have out there, But there's more to Tim Wilson than what you always see on stage. Tim Wilson was one of the most brilliant, intelligent, creative people who's ever been in this business. It may shock some people, but Tim Wilson was very well-read.
Right, yes.
He knew what was going on in the world. To talk to Tim Wilson on stage was an educational experience. Just a good man. He's just a well-rounded person,
Yes, it was. And he loved music, and he kept going that. And, of course, he used that music in his comedy and his act, just a songwriter. And how he could just blend in.
And Tim was the kind of
together.
guy that could come on the show, and not like a lot of guys will come in and they have their 4 radio bits and they say, oh, lead me into this topic or whatever. Tim was the kind of guy that could come in here, sit down and listen to what we were talking about already for a few minutes, and he would always have something to contribute.
That's what we're talking
And
about.
that's the brilliance that you're talking about, James.
And the same way with James, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He knew a little about a lot of things.
Yeah, he sure did.
There's more to this world than comedy. There's more to this world than your career. And he was one of those. He wanted to know what was going on around him and what was going on in our country and in our world. I'll tell you how much I respect Tim Wilson. A few years ago, there was a promoter, and he had a great idea. We did several shows, and they called it something like, had these 3 Southern guys. It was Killer Bees, Tim Wilson, and James Gregory. And we toured at some of these theaters and civic centers for a while. So when we all sat down and the promoter had this idea, here was his proposal. He wanted Killer Bees to be the host and the MC, to come out and do part of his show. All right. Then bring Tim on, and Tim would be in the middle spot. And then I would close the show. And I refused to do it. I said, I'll do the show, but be in the middle. I cannot follow Tim Wilson. I said, I enjoy being the headliner, and I appreciate your compliment, but you got to reverse this. Tim Wilson is the headliner. I'll be the feature act. That's how much respect I have for Tim Wilson. And we did the show for about 6 concerts, and it was my pleasure to go on before he went on.
That's something. You're used to being the headliner and the closer on that, James. I know you've thought a lot of Tim. Well, James, thanks for taking some time with us this morning. I know you're playing tonight at the Chapman Cultural Arts Center, Spartanburg, South Carolina. You'll be at Center Stage in Greenville, South Carolina tomorrow night. So, the way the deal is, the show must go on, but I'm sure you'll be having Tim in your heart during your shows, buddy.
Yes, I will. And on a lighter note, I'm still convinced, and when I'm in the Carolinas, I know that Bojangles is at every exit.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to enjoy myself because I still believe that salad, the salad and the food, that's junk food to me. So I'm going to have my chicken and do my shows and keep Tim in my heart.
All right.
There you go.
Okay, James, we hope to see you soon, buddy. We love you. Thank you.
Love you, James.
And thank you now.
Okay.
All right, man.
All right, buddy.